Okay. All right. I think it's working now. It got weird on me. I tried to start the stream and it was like live streaming is not available right now, and I was just the hell. But I think I'm live now. Folks will let me know, I'm sure. Hey folks. Yeah, I can't speak for Gozer or for Pirates. Carolyn won't be joining us today. I mean the bi-weekly streams haven't been too intense. I think I can manage on my own without the mods, or hopefully some will show up later. But I think we'll live. I hope everybody's doing well. So, reminder at the top, I will do my best to keep up with the chat. Best way to get my attention, well, the one thing that'll guarantee that you are seen by me and my eyes is to do a super chat, which will also get you a heart from me. I'm being a little weird with this finger because I just put nail polish on it. That will guarantee that I will see and reply to whatever you put up. Not doing that at me, I'll be more likely to see it, but I make no promises. There's also the Discord, which is accessible to folks who are Patreon supporters. Do be aware if that is you. The cutoff for submitting questions through the Discord was the start of the stream, so I'll be looking at those later on, but not immediately, and no new questions at this point. Well, you can ask them, I won't answer them. Okay. Looking cool. I wish it's supposed to finally cool off tonight, for the first time in like a week and a half, like 2 weeks. So, I'm looking forward to that. It's just been so hot and sweaty. The rats have melted. They aren't happy. I've actually got them shut up in one of the bedrooms right now that has air conditioning. My office does not have air conditioning. Today's International Day of World's Indigenous People. Lovely. Well, I'll have a sip to that. I've just watched The Man in the Iron Mask. Curious if you've seen it, what your opinions of it are, if so. I did see it in the theater when it first came out in, I think, the late 90s. I remember thinking it was decent, but too long. But I have not rewatched it since the 90s, so I don't know how well I stand by that opinion. Bit of a sad week for me. Mycroft, my dog, died recently. Oh, really sorry to hear that. That's a great name for a dog, though. What time is it where I am? It's 7 o'clock in the evening. How's life? Life is okay. I'm finally starting to get caught up on some stuff that I've been working on forever. There's a video, there's a premiere already set up on the Vera Wild channel, and that is a video that I have been editing since February. So yeah, it's nice to finally have that done. It was warm enough in Dublin to have my ice cream melt within minutes. Yeah, that tracks. Sounds about right. Did you see How It Ends? Came out last year. It was a strangely uplifting end of the world flick. No, I've lost track of the end of the world movies because there's like How It Ends, or This Is the End, and Friend at the End of the World, and like they all have very similar names, and there was like a 5-year stretch where they just kind of all came out, and I haven't seen most of them. I haven't really been in the mood to watch the world end. I think I get enough of that just keeping up with the news. Oh, Supreme Omega, thank you very much for the super chat. On Amphibia, do you feel there should have been more episodes on Sasha and Marcy? I feel the show had too much focus on the planters and not enough on Anne's friends. I didn't find myself wanting for that, but I don't think it would have hurt the show to make that decision. It's not like I'm It's not like I'm super committed to the idea that like they were right not to do it or they definitely should. I think it would have been a perfectly fine decision, but it wasn't something I found myself missing while watching it. So that's kind of where I am at it. Watched your review of Nope earlier today. That's a good movie. Nope is a really good movie. I feel like it got undervalued because it seems like a lot of people felt the need to like rank Jordan Peele's 3 movies, and a lot of them put that at the bottom. So they were like, which I think is underselling it. I'm not going to tell you where I think it ranks with 3 movies because I think that's irrelevant. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. What is my opinion on Neil Patrick Harris saying the 14th Doctor is going to be the gayest Doctor ever? I forget what his exact words were. I didn't love seeing it. And I actually posted on Twitter, like, did he just kind of spoil ways in which the Doctor's actually going to be played? Or did he just, unintentionally out Ncuti Gatwa, who I've talked about before, is not publicly gay. He's not publicly anything. He's never clarified his sexuality. So I don't know which it was. I don't love it either way. I get that, he was trying to be enthusiastic and all that, but like, After watching your villain ranking tier, I think you should carry on with the War Doctor, Big Finish, as the Dalek time strategist has the deepest voice of them all. I should try some more of the War Doctor. The problem is, I listened to the first series of the War Doctor, and it just really underwhelmed me. I may have made the mistake of listening to the War Master first, which is so much more ambitious and a lot better. Can't stay for too long. Funeral tomorrow. This has been a fun week. Oh my goodness. I'm really sorry to hear that, Ben. Good grief. Have I seen Prey yet? I don't have Hulu. So I don't know if I will ever get to see that. Today's also Katie Gangel's birthday. I saw that. I saw that on TikTok. She was lovely. I was glad I got to meet her at Gallifrey 1. Have you seen the 2009 Dorian Gray film? Have you also read the book? Absolutely love Oscar Wilde's writing style. I have neither seen that movie nor read that book. I think the only Oscar Wilde thing I've read is The Importance of Being Earnest, which I do like quite a bit. I like that kind of comedy of manners kind of thing. Hey, Vera, I've been hearing a lot about Owl House from you, and I'm curious what it is. I'm pretty sure I heard that Alex Hirsch is behind it. How true is that statement? That statement's not true at all, Logan. Alex Hirsch does a voice in it of one of the main recurring characters. And the actual creator of the thing, Dana Terrence, I believe worked on Gravity Falls. So you could say that his style may have influenced things. He is not directly involved creatively at all. So if someone's trying to sell it to you saying this is his show, it's not. His voice is very present, and it's a very similar voice to Bill Cipher, which is basically the guy's normal speaking voice. So you'll get a sense of his presence, certainly, but creatively, no, it's not his show. Surprisingly, it's 64 degrees where I live. That Fahrenheit or Celsius? I'm assuming that's Fahrenheit. Because 64 Celsius is something ridiculous. I knew that took longer to come up in the questions than I thought. What do you think about the merger of HBO and Discovery? Okay, I am not going to get heavily into this right now because this is the subject of Saturday's video. So I'll be going through in a lot more detail there about what has and hasn't been going on, because as is commonly the case with a rapidly evolving story, there's a lot of people who have either made faulty assumptions or ran with information that came out early and turned out to not quite be true, but they're still assuming that early report was correct, etc., etc., etc. Short version, I don't love it. I don't love what they're doing. I do understand a decent amount of it. Some of it I don't really get. But I can track most of what they say they're doing. Let's see. What celebrity have you loved in the past but lost all respect for, or in an instant because of their actions? I mean, J.K. Rowling would be the big one. Ugh. With the patterns of doctors joining the MCU, who do you think Jodie Whittaker should play? Ooh. That's an interesting question. I don't have a pick off the top of my head. And it's not all the MCU. It's just superhero movies in general. Because Morbius is technically not the MCU, and Capaldi was in Suicide Squad, which is DC. I will say, though, they've pretty much all been villains. Whittaker would make an interesting Mystique, actually. I know Ghostbusters is your favorite movie of all time. Yes, it is, well remembered. I was wondering what some of your runner-ups might be. Oh, jeez. Like, just too many. There's a lot. The thing is, I know that number one slot, and stuff other than that, it's just like a cobbled together mess, and it's all over the place. You know, Summer Wars, Labyrinth, another Thin Man, I really like a lot. Clue, Knives Out. That's a few for you. I could come up with more, but we'll go with that for right now. Suprema Mega, thank you very much for the super chat. In your trauma video, there are fans who actually like Hal's heel turn nowadays. Some say Hal was more interesting when he was Parallax and Spectre. Thoughts? When he was Parallax, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Parallax was boring as shit. He was a generic, powerful, I will destroy the universe. Parallax was boring. Spectre was kind of interesting because it was a little bit of a redemptive pattern. And like, I can be iffy on redemption stories in general, but like a lot of it was rooted in the idea that he had truly done some terrible stuff, but also the nature of the Spectre is not a purely heroic figure. The Spectre is a violent, frightening figure. So it made for an interesting thing that he was kind of earning redemption through something that wasn't a clear-cut Paragon sort of role. That was interesting. Parallax was not. Parallax, there was nothing interesting about Parallax. Moving along. Kara Watson, thank you very much for the super chat. I finished my children's story last week, hovering around 3K words. Seems okay for a book with illustrations. I'm struggling with a title, though. Tips? I mean, obviously I've never read it, so I can't give you tips on what to actually call the thing itself. If you're asking me for tips on what to call it, I mean, if there's a main recurring line, motif, something, if not that directly, something related to that, honestly, just give it to some people you trust and say, hey, what do you think would make sense as a title? And like, just to get some options. I recently played through The Edge of Reality, and to be honest, I found it an enjoyably broken game. I'm glad you got enjoyment out of it, Lewis. I had a miserable time. Absolutely miserable with that game. I live in Georgia, my friend. It may as well read on the state welcome sign, may swamp ass rain down on all. Ugh. John Vinyls, thank you very much for the super chat. Hot take incoming. Oh dear. Methinks the Owl House and Amphibia will be as iconic to future generations of Disney fans as the classic Renaissance movies are to our generation. Yes and no. So yes, in that they will be comparably beloved to things from our generation, but I don't think the movies is the right comparison to make because, like, simply put, the movies are pretty universally viewed. The shows are more niche. That's true now. That was true then. So I think your closer equivalent would be that they will be as beloved as DuckTales, Gargoyles, and sort of Darkwing Duck, maybe things of that nature. I don't think it's fair to compare to the movies, which are always going to be seen by way more people. In all honesty, I'm ready for the fall. I'm always ready for fall. Fall's the best season. Which actor from modern era Doctor Who that has played a companion in the past would you like to see play the Doctor? I'm not sure I'd go for any of them, to be completely honest. Bill, maybe? Pearl Mackie? Have you seen the film Romeo plus Juliet? Yes, the Baz Luhrmann. Yeah, it's not bad. Especially at the time, I thought actually for giving it a very 90s energy, it was actually a pretty good update and adaptation of the work for what it was trying to be. It was something that really connected with young people in a way that the original play would have at the time, in a way that trying to do that play straight, which actually kind of did. It didn't alter the dialogue or anything, but like doing it as a period piece wouldn't have connected with the actual young people that it would otherwise appeal to. So I actually thought that was a pretty good way of doing it. And it kicked off a wave of modernized Shakespeare stuff, which produced some results, but also it gave us stuff like Titus and 10 Things I Hate About You. So I'm not going to complain. Questions. Have you read the Earth 2 series from DC? Came out during the New 52 era. It's actually really good, especially how they handled Alan Scott and Jay Garrick. I never did read those. I heard people liked them. I did hear that. I never read them, though. Did you ever play Final Fantasy IX? It's my personal favorite of the 3D Final Fantasy games. I did play that one. It was good. I enjoyed it. It felt a little kind of retrograde to me. And obviously, like, for some people, that's the appeal of it. But, I don't know. As someone whose all-time favorite is still Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy IX felt like it was grasping for old ideas without doing much to elevate it. Actually, for the full 3D, I really like Final Fantasy XII, which nobody seems to talk about anymore. Which, that, to me, felt like a really interesting propelling forward of things, while also going back to a simpler, easier to follow story and some of the things that I did like about 6, but while also feeling like the whole thing wasn't kind of backpedaling. Adrenaline, thank you so much for the super chat. Hi Vera, would love your thoughts on Sean Bean saying intimacy coordinators spoil the spontaneity of sex scenes. Okay. I wondered if this was going to come up. So, keep in mind that at time of speaking, this is based off a cursory look at what it was that he said. My read on it is that he was expressing an honest opinion about his own personal discomfort and issues with them in working environments that he himself is present in. I did not get a vibe from him that he was railing against the concept of them existing at all. And everything about what he said to me read as, so basically what he said, because it wasn't just spoil the spontaneity, because if that was all that he said, I might not hold this opinion. But he also said that being watched that closely in what is meant to be a scene where he's trying to project intimacy to a camera in an already artificial setting made him very self-conscious and made it difficult to do his job. And I believe him when he says that. I don't think he's using that as an excuse. I think it genuinely makes it harder for him to focus and do his work. Now, as far as the spoil the spontaneity, that probably is more to do with how he is used to these kinds of scenes being played. But in terms of his sense of self-consciousness, I absolutely believe him when he says that. Now, that puts him in a situation where if I'm right, and that's his sincerely held conviction that it makes his job harder. And again, I never got the impression he was speaking for anyone else. But if he's saying, like, it makes my job harder when they're here, if that is what he was trying to express, there's almost no way to express that isn't going to get somebody upset. Because they're going to go, oh, so you think there shouldn't be anybody overseeing what you're doing. You think you should be allowed to do what you want. None of that is what he said. So the impression that I get is that he was expressing a personally held reality for him as an actor and did not think in the moment about how that was going to read when heard or read by other people. That's my takeaway and impression. I never got the feeling that he was going, we don't need this. I should be allowed to do whatever I want. I never got that. I never got that vibe off the answer as I have seen it. So there we go. Have I played the video game Stray? Nope, I have not. Last season of Riverdale was good. Liz has just started watching that. She's taking notes. She's going to tell me about it at some point later and try and break me. Oh, boy. With the exception of Gargoyles, aren't those cartoons way deeper than old 1990s Disney cartoons? Well, yes, but I wasn't comparing them in terms of storytelling style. The original question was, will they be as beloved as? So I was comparing the love that the current generation will have for them, not actually comparing them as products to each other. So I think you kind of misunderstood why I made that comparison. Lucy Wood, thank you very much for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. Hi, Council of Geeks. Which actor or actress who has played the Doctor do you think would be best at playing the Master? Ooh, okay. So I know most people's answer to this is David Tennant, because they watched Jessica Jones. Now, let's be very clear. Kilgrave was the perfect villain for that, and David Tennant played him amazingly. Kilgrave is not the Master, though, and that is not a way I would want the Master to be played. Not to say that I don't think David Tennant could play a good Master, but honestly, I would rather see Capaldi do it. As far as actors still with us. Though, even that set aside, you know, despite the fact that I don't really like his Doctor that much, something in me says that Davison could make a really interesting Master. Does America have an equivalent to a supermarket meal deal for lunch? If so, what would you get? I mean, a lot of supermarkets just have like pre-made stuff. It's usually fried stuff. It's usually like fried chicken and stuff like that. I try not to grab it. I do sometimes. I shouldn't, though. Finally started reading Dreams of Fire. My TBR is way too long. I am enjoying it a lot. I'm about 24% in. Well, thank you, Cappuccino Crafts. I hope you enjoy it all the way through. Feels weird not having Gozer, Carowin, and Pirates. I know. I'm not sure where Pirates or Gozer are. I do know about Carowin. Like, she's fine, but she won't be joining us. Question: who is a voice actor you most associate with a specific character? Personally, Tim Daly is Superman, Roger Craig Smith is Batman, Christopher Daniel Barnes is Spider-Man. Okay, so based off the way you worded that question, I'm assuming you're saying like a character who they weren't the only one to voice. So like, I think voice acting, my brain kind of goes to David Keith voicing Goliath in Gargoyles, but like, Goliath was never voiced by anyone else. Probably, but like I'm suddenly drawing a huge flippin' blank. I don't know why. I mean, Mark Hamill is the Joker, specifically the Bruce Timm Joker. They brought him back to do the Joker again in other settings, and it hasn't worked as well. And I don't think it's because he's become any less good at it. It's because his version of the Joker was built around a very specific world to inhabit. And they've tried to drop him into other ones, or like in the freaking Killing Joke, and that didn't work. Just trying to think if I can think of anybody else. That's just the one kind of leaping to mind. Oh, CCH Pounder for Amanda Waller. Oh, she's good. Riverdale makes me depressed. It could have been a good show if the writing was better. I don't think the writing was ever good. I'm writing a series at the moment that's set in my hometown. I doubt I could get it filmed here, as I'm presenting the UK's City of Culture as a bit of a shithole. Yes, that would probably make funding a little tricky to get. But who knows? Supreme Omega, thank you once again for the super chat. An old Spidey, I get why Norman should have stayed dead. Norman Osborn, yeah. He was a better villain as a haunting ghost who created a legacy of evil, aka the anti-Uncle Ben. Yeah, he should have stayed dead. Harry should have stayed dead. Honestly, most of the Spider-Man characters who came back should have stayed dead. With Harry and Norman being the big ones. Thankfully, they never really brought back Gwen. Like, they fake did that a couple times, but they never actually pulled that for real. Thank goodness. Oh, they brought Ben Reilly back again. And, like, they're doing some weird shit with him. I don't know why. I kind of want to watch Riverdale because I've recently discovered I love zero to batshit train wrecks. It might work for you for that, yeah. Did you ever see the 2009 Wonder Woman animated film? I did. I think it's pretty good. You know, for a 80-minute animated film. I'm not inclined to compare it to the Gal Gadot movie. I think both are good. Isn't it a shame that Matt Smith's first role in a superhero movie was in Morbius? He could have been amazing in any other role. Well, I still haven't seen Morbius, so for all I know, he was amazing in that. I don't know. It's Morbin time. Have you watched Last Night in Soho? I have not. It is one of the many things on my very, very, very long to watch list. I hope that Sacha Dhawan sticks around after Jodie leaves. Unlikely, Ms. Wicked Wolf, because it's been announced that he's going to be involved with Big Finish. And while I don't think it's a hard contract rule, as a general rule, they have not gotten access to any of the actors if those actors are still appearing in the show, which probably also means we aren't getting any more of Jo Martin because she's going to start working with Big Finish too. So, hate to be the one to break it to you, but thoughts on War for the Planet of the Apes? It was pretty good. It was a solid closeout to that series. I think it was the least good of the three of the rebooted Planet of the Apes movies. I gotta stop just swallowing spit the wrong way. Lucy Wood, thank you so much for the super chat. When you made your YouTube video sorting the doctors into Hogwarts houses 3 years ago, you said Jodie Whittaker would be a Hufflepuff. Has your opinion changed since? Oh, geez, I haven't thought in terms of Hogwarts houses for a long time for what should be obvious reasons. I think probably I'd shift her over to Ravenclaw. I think she's a little bit too emotionally constipated to be a Hufflepuff. I'm not going to think about that any more than I already have, though. So I won't be pinned down on that, but, you know. Ever watch The Americans on FX? I never did. I'm familiar with it, never did watch it. Rather than an unhinged master, which is basically what we've had variants of in New Who, I'd like to see him move back to a more charming, erudite portrayal. If you have not listened to The War Master on Big Finish, that will give you what you are asking for. Imagine Dewan's Master and Missy as a duo. I think they would pull each other apart. Have you watched The Boys? I have not. I don't like Garth Ennis's writing, so I have no intention of watching The Boys. And yes, I've had people say to me, "Oh, but like, oh, it's better, it's different." I've looked up vague synopses of what goes on. I'm like, no, this is very Garth Ennis. Like, I'm just, maybe it's better executed than he does when he writes the comics himself. But, you know, I'm looking at these just general descriptions and what people say when they talk about it. I'm like, that sounds exactly like the guy whose writing I don't like. Did you hear that Josh Keaton recently put out a video where he does the monologue from The Amazing Spider-Man number 121, and holy hell, the man has still got it, you know. I don't know who Josh Keaton is. You're gonna have to fill me in on who that is, Logan. I think RDT will get rid of everything Chibnall. Well, yes, but that's standard. Really, none of the showrunners have kept in place any of the immediate stuff. Some of them have brought back stuff that the other showrunners had during their time or introduced during their time. But like, they all started with fairly clean slates. Yeah, I expect so too. But it's not because he hates Chibnall stuff. It's because that's what's happened every time. You know what annoys me most about Big Finish? The fact that they give you the month of the release, but never the day. If you're trying to keep on top of it, yeah, that would be annoying. 13th Doctor, Big Finish, when? Also, would you want her to meet River in it? I would like her meeting River. Did you ever watch the 2004 Battlestar Galactica? I never did. Never did. No, actually, that's not true. I saw a marathon of most of the first season, but that was like 2006. I saw that. And I didn't go back to it after that. Not that I didn't like it, but like I didn't like it enough to like track down the rest of it. Yeah. What Star Wars villain do you think would make the best Doctor Who villain? Jabba. I think Jabba would make the best Doctor Who villain. Cameron H., thank you very much for the super chat. I found your channel because of a recent X-Men video got recommended. Hooked ever since. Oh, it is nice to be reassured that every now and then, the algorithm does still put my stuff in front of new people. Occasionally. Not very often, but sometimes. Doctor Who villain, I kind of want to see back the Toclafane. I don't know what else there is to do with the Toclafane, though. Like, their entire... Like, they worked. I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but, like, the thing about the Toclafane is that what makes them work and memorable is that is that twist and that reveal of what they are. With that already out of the way, I don't know if there's much interesting to actually do with them. Ennis is too cynical. Ennis is too juvenile. And yeah, here's my problem with Garth Ennis's writing. Yes, he's a bit cynical. I don't think that's his core problem, though, because I can enjoy cynical writers sometimes. I think the problem is he has a very high school, college sense of humor, mentality, worldview, and he's about 70% as clever as he thinks he is. He is not unclever. He's actually fairly clever. He's not nearly as clever as he thinks he is. And that 30% gap grates on me the more I read his stuff. I think the stuff from him that I liked the best was The Punisher, because he was trying, it seemed like the least, to say something with The Punisher. He seemed to focus on just telling a decent story. So like, welcome back, Frank, and Bourne were both pretty decent. I think partially because he wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel or to make a big statement, which is stuff that he has tried to do with things like Preacher and The Boys, and I really don't care for his stuff. outside of the Punisher stuff that I mentioned, because I've read some of his other Punisher stuff other than that, and he also went off the rails there too. But at least for a little while, he was a good fit for the Punisher. Josh Keaton is the voice of Spider-Man from the Spectacular Spider-Man series. Oh, cool. I never watched that one. Who would you put in a Doctor Who Suicide Squad? I mean, individuals. Okay, so the whole premise of the Suicide Squad is disposable villains. Like, that's the whole idea. But, like, who could actually get some work done. So, see, the thing is, most of the one-off villains from Doctor Who, they tended to, like, maybe they had a decent bit of tech or, going for them, but a lot of them don't have actual powers or anything like that. Trying to think. Because, like, it's a really good idea, and I'm fumbling because it's an idea that deserves a good answer, and my brain is kind of cycling, trying to come up with something, with anything on that. I mean, like, disregard the fact that most of these characters would just flat out be dead, but Dalek Sec, the hybrid Dalek Sec, that'd be a good addition. I think that one would make sense. Dr. Lazarus could be the Muscle. In addition to that, the Wire could be the Hacker. Like, let's go fully with the Suicide Squad, because they're also supposed to be kind of crap villains. That's one of the problems with putting, like, Harley Quinn on the Suicide Squad, is, like, she's a good villain, people like her, whereas the heart of the Suicide Squad is, like, these are supposed to be crap villains that nobody actually likes that much. Yeah, I feel like I should toss at least one more on there. They can have a Cyber Shade as the mascot. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Doctor Who movie you reviewed, the other was panned at the time. Does that surprise you? Not especially. I wasn't aware, because if I'm gonna watch something, regardless what the critical consensus is, it doesn't matter too much to me. Felicity Keen, thank you very much for the super chat. Will you be making a video about the Batgirl film? Sort of. The video that I'm coming out with on Saturday is about kind of the whole scope of the Warner Brothers Discovery, all this crap going on. It initially was supposed to just be about Batgirl, but then the whole thing snowballed. So yeah, that will be wrapped up in that video, where I'll be covering a fair bit of stuff. I hope at some point in Doctor Who, every single Doctor that's come before teams up with the new Doctor in a final fight. I mean, I think the closest we got to that we'll ever get was Day of the Doctor. And I think it would be hard to try and do that again without it just feeling like that all over again. Hey, Vera, what do you think of my solution to the Magneto problem? I have him be in the Holocaust and then jump forward through time like Captain America. That can work personally. For me, for my feeling on Magneto, I would rather have him here and present and having witnessed humanity backslide. I think you can still, like, get him to the same place if he leaps forward in time and he's like, things aren't better. But I think to truly bring out the bitterness or the sense of, I have to do something because nothing's going to get better otherwise, is if he has been here, seen the post-war era, seen things start to head in a better direction, and then backslide. I think that would resonate with that character stronger for me and the way I like him. If Poison Ivy makes an appearance in Suicide Squad 3 or Birds of Prey 2, Karen Gillan could play her. That'd be an interesting pick. What would you think of Doctor Who taking a break from the Master and bringing back a different Time Lord? Not the Ronnie, because we know your thoughts. Maybe the Monk or Romana. I'd be down for the Monk. Big Finish has done some fun stuff with the Monk, so I'd be down for that. Captain Omni, once more, thank you so very much. I've seen some claim Tarzan is a racist character despite him not really adopting any of the local culture and not being literally raised by apes. Do you think people are reading too much into things? All right, hang on. Tarzan is a racist character in so much as he fits a trope and a format that is inherently white supremacists. Now, some people might very well be banging the drum too hard on that because there are lots of things that like fit the mold and the tropes and exist in the shadow of racism, white supremacy, colonialism, etc., but are not actively pushing any of those ideas, but because they still exist in those spaces, they still carry them with them. So, like, I'll get to Tarzan in a second, but like my go-to example of that is something like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones and anything like that, any kind of treasure hunting archaeological movie where a white person goes to a foreign land and basically grave robs and it's treated like a good thing is inherently colonialist in its mentality. It's almost never brought up that the locals have a claim to whatever it is this person is getting. It's theirs because finders keepers for some reason or whatever. So, and I love the Indiana Jones. Well, I love two of the Indiana Jones movies, and I don't think that they push that idea particularly hard, but it's ingrained in the genre. Similarly with Tarzan. Tarzan is inherently a white supremacist and colonialist character in that he is an embodiment of the idea of if you take, like, don't forget that not only is he a white dude, he's a lord. So it's this idea that if you take a white dude from England, drop him in the middle of the jungle, even if he doesn't know English and is raised by wildlife, he is going to naturally become a leader, a formidable, he will fit in, he will be able to do everything that the locals, even if those locals are wildlife, are able to do just as well as them, if not better. It's a variant on the white savior archetype. Now, that can sound weird with Tarzan because he's rarely directly a savior figure, but these are married concepts. The inherent colonialism and white supremacy in white savior narratives is of a kind with what goes on in something like Tarzan. So he carries with him a lot of colonialist and, yes, racist baggage because of the type of story he's in. I haven't actually read any of the Tarzan stories, so I don't know how hard those do or don't push any of those notions directly. There's a nice long-winded answer for you. Have you ever heard of Andrew Tate? I feel like I've heard that name. Don't know where. So for some confusing reason, a lot of tech billionaires are culture fans. Do they need to read surface detail, particularly the Vepper stuff, to know what banks think of them? The thing is that people who have won, whether it be tech billionaires or presidents of the United States or what have you, or, whatever, they will always picture themselves as the good people in any story, even when there is a very clear analog to them that is very much not the good people. And Vepers is a really good example of that. It would actually, I'm about 60, 65% of the way through the book now. It's a long damn book. But I remember early on with Lededger realizing that the wrongs that had been done to her by Vepper, she was not going to be able, or she was going to not be assisted and possibly be prevented. We'll see where it goes. I haven't gotten to the end yet. In just trying to mete out justice for what was done to her because he is too rich and important. And even societies that recognize, oh yes, he's terrible, but he's too important. Too much of the society pivots on him. We can't just let you go after him. it's too big a domino to let fall. It's kind of the same principle by which the banks got bailed out after the financial crisis in 2008 that they caused. Because no matter whose fault it was, and it was their fucking fault, these trees were too big to let fall. They were rotten trees through and through. They were nothing but a burden. But if they just fall, they are going to demolish whatever's in their wake. And they were very big trees. It's the same principle. And yeah, reading that was like, oh, God, I wish that didn't read so damn true. The less said about Temple of Doom, the better. Yeah, I really don't care for Temple of Doom, like, at all. Yeah, I think of Tarzan Avatar is actually quite a relatable film, you know, being the white guy who came in and fucked everything up for the natives. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's 1:45, which means I gotta pop over to the Discord and address any questions asked there. So, I will be back in hopefully 5 to 10 minutes. We'll see how many questions there are. I don't know. Reminder, the Council of Geeks Discord is exclusively a perk of supporting me on Patreon. So patreon.com/Council of Geeks. Check that out. Have you gotten to any of Netflix's The Sandman yet? Any thoughts? I am halfway through. I finished up episode 5 last night. Excuse me. And so that means I've covered basically all the way through almost all the way through their adaptations of the first volume. I am liking it a lot better than I thought I would. I'll talk about this when I actually review the whole thing, but the marketing really put a lot of emphasis on how much they were directly translating in the comic, and that actually made my interest go way down. But it's actually very well adapted, and I've been having a really good time seeing what has been changed, and with only one exception so far to the changes I've seen, all of them being changes that are at worst neutral and often interesting. Like, they don't worsen the story. They don't weaken the story. Maybe they were necessitated by something other than narrative or whatever, but they've been interesting adaptational choices, with only one that I'm like, nah, you shouldn't have done that. But I'm not going to say what that is here, because that would be spoilery. Answer me these questions 3. What's your favorite comfort food? Probably macaroni and cheese. Halloween or Yule/Christmas? Probably Christmas, because I really like gifts. You have access to the entire catalog of mutants from the X titles. What Mystique story do you tell and why? Okay, so Dharma knows me pretty well, clearly. I mean, like, my default is to kind of pick up with what Brian K. Vaughan did with the whole thing of Mystique being very Black Ops kind of thing. Outside of that, I would like to put her very front and center as the face of a civil rights movement. And what I think I'd build through that is that she's stopped the shape-shifting. She just presents herself as is. She goes out, she marches, she gives speeches. She's becoming at the forefront of these of the fight for mutant rights. But nobody trusts her because they know who she is and what she has done and what she can do. And no matter what she does, they still won't trust her. And to see how that wears on her and to see where that would take her, I would be interested to explore. Do you think Wilf's character will get a proper send-off in the 60th? I don't know, because something I have tried really hard to confirm, and I have not been able to, is whether or not he finished filming all of his stuff at the time when Bernard Cribbins passed away. And I can't confirm. I think he did, but I cannot confirm that. I don't think he'll get a send-off insofar as I do not expect that they will, like, add something in the narrative to, like, cover the idea that he's gone. I think they'll put a dedicated to or in memory of at the end, and otherwise leave the narrative alone. Do you think it's a problem that when you get lesbian couples in fiction, especially kids fiction, they tend to make them butch and femme. Like Luce is more tomboyish than Amity, or Cora, or Cora is more tomboyish than Asami. I mean, I think it's a question of degree. Yes, Luce is more tomboyish than Amity, but Amity's also not especially girly. She's not overly femme. So I think it's a matter of degree, because I think, like, unless you basically stamp out two versions of the same character, you're gonna get some degree of variance, and I think that's fine, as long as you're not doing the far end version of so butch and so femme that it basically fits the format of what's normally thought of as a male and a female relationship just with two girls. As long as you're not going that far, and even that you can do, but just be really careful about it, I think would be it for that. Does the fact that most young people in the U.S. support queer people make you at all optimistic that if the right try to do some really bad stuff to LGBTQ people, next time they get into federal power, there will be popular resistance to it? Earlier today, I was listening to a podcast about the Warsaw Uprising, and the host made the point that Nazis were able to do what they did was because regular Germans, even the ones who weren't particularly anti-Semitic, just didn't care about Jews enough to help them resist their persecution as it ramped up. Maybe I'm being naive, but I would like to think a lot of straight millennials and Zoomers wouldn't act the same way if queer people were under similar threat. Honestly, I was having this conversation with Liz while we were on a hike. I really don't mean for this to come across as ageist, but I really need I'd say about 90% of all the boomers in politics to step down, like now, especially on the left, because what is actually cared about and what my generation and Gen Z are passionate about is flat out not represented in the US in politics right now, because people in their 60s and up have clung to power for the last 40 goddamn years, and it's really become infuriating. As far as the right going against queer people, how well they're able to do that depends on how well our institutions hold. Because if the system is not deliberately broken and replaced with fascism, which so far has not happened, but is not impossible, so long as that does not happen, the institutions as we have them make the kind of discrimination against any group, such as queer people, very difficult to sustain. You can get it put in place, but like Jim Crow before it, the fundamental unfairness of it is going to eventually collapse under the weight of the safeguards that are in place far too slowly. Like, let me be clear. The revocation and the restriction of these rights should not be able to happen in the first place. And me even saying that, so long as the system isn't deliberate, doesn't, get completely broken and disassembled, then the system will correct this. That is not a reason to do nothing. That's actually kind of fucked, because the system should be preventing these laws from ever being put into place. But that's a very American thing. We don't try and prevent bad things. We let bad things happen and then try and fix it later. That's an incredibly American mentality, I think best exemplified by the fact of how we handle product recalls in this country. You try and introduce a brand new product into Europe, you have to go through all these tests, all these strenuous things to prove that it is not harmful to consumers and that it does what you say it will do. In America, you can bring any goddamn product to market and it will only be challenged if it starts hurting people and evidence builds of that. You don't have to prove it isn't harmful. Other people have to prove that it is. And that is very core to the American mentality. And that in and of itself is a big part of the problem of where we are right now. I've gone off. Let's move on. So I just started watching season 3 of The Boys, and it got me wondering what if Superman was evil is an overplayed trope? Yes, it is. Overly sarcastic productions did a really good kind of ramble on that. Like, in my opinion, what if someone tried to do good and made things worse because he doesn't know everything would be much more interesting subversion, because I think it's what would actually happen if you gave a non-sociopath superpowers. I'd actually agree with that. That would be a much more interesting, I think a much more interesting question than what if Superman was evil was, what if Superman tried to be good, but it made things worse anyways? I think that's a much more interesting question, because the instant you make Superman evil, he's not Superman anymore. Because much more than his strength or his heat vision or his ability to fly or anything else, Superman is defined by doing the right thing, by being righteous and just. That's who he is. He does not turn evil. That's why anyone going, what if he was evil? Okay, then he's not Superman. You're doing something else, and it's uninteresting. Okay, I am now back in the main chat. Thank you very much for your patience. Ooh, we got some more. Captain Omni, thank you again very much. If there was to be a replacement for the superhero genre in film, would you say sword and sorcery franchises such as Conan the Barbarian or Elric of Melnibone? I never knew how to pronounce that. Is a good replacement? If not, why? I think... So, honestly, the main problem there, comparatively, is that there... And I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but I'm going by public perception. I don't think that at present the public perceives that there is as much variety in high fantasy as there is in superheroes, because you can do a more sci-fi hero, a more fantasy hero, you can do an anti-hero, you can do a paragon hero, you have a decent amount of variety. I think the public perception of what high fantasy stories are is a lot more homogenous, and I think it would take not just one, it would take several projects to really kind of break that. I think you'd need to successfully adapt like a Discworld book, but also successfully adapt something like Conan the Barbarian or Elric, or successfully adapt like a Driss Duerden book or something like that. I think you need like within a 5-year span a variety of, yes, they're all fantasy, but they're all doing different things and saying different things. That's and they would all have to be successful. That's what it would take to be a proper replacement. Is it impossible? No, I don't think it's super likely though, because I think to most people, fantasy means Lord of the Rings. There was a time when it would have been fantasy means Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, but unless House of the Dragon like completely revives people's interest, nobody really cares about Game of Thrones anymore. Sorry, that ending really, really botched it. All right, we're going to be wrapping up relatively soon. Super chat, Supreme Omega, was Crisis a mistake? Because it resulted in continuity issues with Donna Troy and Legion, also made DC try and fix their universe with more reboots. I don't think Crisis was a mistake in concept. I think there were some execution issues with Crisis, and you've already highlighted some in terms of continuity with Donna Troy or the Legion. There wasn't great, like, people who weren't around at the time, hear about Crisis and they're like, oh, and they rebooted it and then all these things started over. Like, there was actually a weird period of a year or two where it was super unclear what was or was not in continuity, because the communication just between the writers or the different editors wasn't great. And then it wasn't especially good to the readers either. So I think there were some execution issues with Crisis. I don't think it was a mistake though, because, speaking as someone who was always more into Marvel than DC, the idea of these multiple continuities was part of what put me off trying to catch up with DC. And like, by the time I was getting into comics, like, the multiverse had been over for ages, but like you would go to comic shops and they'd still have these volumes of this older stuff, this pre-crisis stuff. And I just look on a shelf and like see 2 different versions of Superman and be like, what the heck with this? Where's Spider-Man? So I don't think they were wrong to do it. I think there were some issues with it, and I think I don't think Crisis was a mistake. I think the New 52 was a mistake. Across the board. We're the type of country who will bomb another country into oblivion, then come in with sandwiches and coffee. Yeah, that's very America. If you got your hands on a TARDIS, where would you go first? And would you model the console on your own design or one from the show? Honestly, I feel like I would have the console set up like a random generator where I could just hit a button, it would reshuffle, and I just keep hitting that till I got something I liked. Still waiting for Owl House Season 3, aren't we all? Well, we're not getting Season 3, we're getting specials, but... given that Banks wrote the book in 2010, do you think that was intentional? He was trying to criticize how untouchable the rich seemed at the time. If Surface Detail was written in 2010, then I would say almost definitely. Because given the financial crisis in 2008 and the fact that that was like my go-to example to compare how Vepris is treated with the whole idea of too big to fail, yeah, I would be shocked if that wasn't intentional with those books. Little Big would make a great movie. The visuals are so unique. That would be really, really hard to adapt to a movie. I'd rather see that done as a miniseries. I think you'd have much better luck. Captain Omni. Ooh, couple from you. Personally, I'd say we've got a solid 40 years before the superhero craze dies down, if only because we barely scratched the surface of the main ones. I disagree. I'd say we're probably looking more in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 years. If only because, like, I don't think interest in superheroes is going to wane because they've gone through all the material. I think interest by the movie-going public in superheroes is going to wane long before it becomes a matter of, but there's still characters to adapt. We don't care. I think audiences will move on before they run out of material. Another one. Hawkman and Hawkgirl being from the planet Thanagar in the Silver Age is more interesting than the reincarnation from the Golden Age they keep pushing. Flash Gordon-style alien warriors are cooler. I'm inclined to agree. The reincarnation thing, it wasn't an uninteresting idea. It was just less interesting. And where would you go first in your shuffle TARDIS? I have no idea. See, this is why I couldn't be the Doctor. I could be the companion. I would want the Doctor to make that decision. I have a hard enough time, like, when friends ask me, where do you want to go to eat? I'm like, could you just decide? I'll find something I want to eat. New mug. If anyone didn't notice, Liz got me this. Have you ever heard of the anime The Promised Neverland? Nope, I am unfamiliar. So, Raya C, thank you very much. I enjoyed your video about trauma and villain making. As a social work student, I find the trope overplayed and disappointing. Yeah. I mean, like, that's generally whenever I talk about and pick apart tropes, my issue is not that the trope is inherently bad, it's that it's overused. That's the nature of most tropes. Question. Have you heard that they're doing a Ruby Justice League animated film based off the comic of the same name? I did hear that. I keep forgetting that is Why? I think it's because Warner Brothers owns Rooster Teeth. I could be wrong about that. Thoughts on the fact that we're getting Good Omens Season 2? I'm not as devoid of hope as I might otherwise be, knowing that there were actually notes from Gaiman and Terry Pratchett about ideas that didn't get used in the first book, or a potential sequel that they never got around to. So it helps that there is some Pratchett material for them to base it off of, so I'm less cynical than I might otherwise have been. I am a little nervous, though. Favorite Tim Burton movie? Probably Beetlejuice. Supreme Omega, thank you once more. I'm going to try and wrap it up soon here, folks. Thoughts on the working class Golden Age Superman? I would like to get back to that. I mean, people forget, Superman initially was busting up slumlords. You know? Give me socialist Superman back. I feel like you misunderstood my middle question a little bit. I was asking if you think straight Zoomers and millennials would be willing to take to defend queer people. More so than Gen Xers, definitely more so than Boomers. I think Gen Z is the one that is going to have the least craps to give, and be the most inclined to just wreck shop. I think that there is more acceptance and love for queer people amongst the straight population of my generation and the generation younger than me than probably most Germans had for the Jews. I mean, I'm being insanely broad. I have to be. I wasn't there. But the impression I get was that the Jews weren't really loved. They were tolerated. And I think that is how the boomer generation feels about queer people. They tolerate us. I think I look around my own generation, and I'm an elder millennial, and I see more outright love for queer people. And I look at Gen Z, and I see a lot of love for queer people. And I think that has the power to potentially spur them to action where simple tolerance would not have done so. Who do you think would win in a battle with an army of droids led by General Grievous or an army of Daleks led by Davros? Okay, first of all, those battle droids were useless. Absolutely useless. General Grievous, it wouldn't stand a chance. Not a chance. Even with the super battle droids, not a chance. Just noticed the earrings. Oh, thank you. A friend of mine gave me this. Jasper gave me these. Have a nice night. Yes, it is about time for me to wrap it up. Would you say the 13th Doctor is the most psychotic, given her lack of any care when she actually does dark things? No. No, I wouldn't. Because to me, psychotic is... To me, psychotic is someone who makes a very deliberate choice to not care. As opposed to, and like I'm talking narratively. I'm not talking about, medical diagnosis. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think the 13th Doctor often reads neurodivergent and is often bad at picking up at emotional and social cues. And I would be very cautious about labeling that as psychotic. Because amongst the people who really like the 13th Doctor are a lot of neurodivergent people who see a lot of themselves in her. So just be cautious about word choice there. I know you didn't mean anything by it. Just saying. All right, Owl House stage musical idea for the actress playing Amity, auditioning with Corner of the Sky, and the actress playing Luz auditioning with Extraordinary. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. What time is it where I am? It's about 8:10 in the evening. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you all so very much for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of the week. So, tomorrow, two things happen. I'll be on Twitch at 10:30 a.m. to Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow. I'm going to play a bit more. I might wrap up Spiritfarer, which means I'll probably be crying on stream. So that'll be on Twitch. And also at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon on the Vera Wild channel, Wild spelled W-Y-L-D-E, I will be premiering a video about content creators who got their followings through mainstream means like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, etc., and then moved on to creating OnlyFans content. It has interviews with 6 different creators. That's the thing that I mentioned earlier that I have been working on editing since February. It's a freaking documentary. It's an hour and 22 minutes long. I made a movie. And it's premiering tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the Vera Wild channel. I haven't done a premiere there, I think, ever. And I hope people will turn out to see it and show support on it. So that is what is coming up in the immediate sense. And for right now, just please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!